Okay, it looks like our council's coming on. I'll check in with Cami. Cami, are you hearing me and are we ready to start once everybody's on?
Yes, I can hear you fine and we're ready to go.
Great. Well, it looks like we're getting folks on, so we'll give it another couple minutes here as we roll towards 6 o'clock. Okay, we're at 6 o'clock. It looks like we have the council on. And I'm seeing our city manager, our city attorney, and so we can get rolling here. This is the City of St. Helena regular city council meeting, Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Tonight, Cami Garcia is going to be clerking for us. Our clerk, Cindy Jafopoulos, had a loss in her family, so want to send out condolences and positive thoughts that way. Cami will be helping us through this evening. And will you begin with remote access instructions, please?
Okay, so to participate in public comment by phone, you dial 669-900-6833, and at the prompt, enter the meeting ID, which is 834-1207-3374, and then press pound. And during public comment, you would press *9 to speak.
Thank you very much. And I want to remind folks that we also have simultaneous Spanish interpretation services available for meetings that can be scheduled upon request. To ensure interpreters are available, requests must be made at least 72 hours in advance by calling the office of the city clerk at 707-968-2640 or emailing cityclerk@cityofsthelena.org. And we'll move now to our roll call, please.
Mayor Ellsworth,
Here.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Here.
Councilmember Shuto, Councilmember Hall,
Here.
and Councilmember Hardy.
Here.
Thank you. We'll move to our Pledge of Allegiance. If folks could mute their microphones and place your hand on your heart and join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move now to our adoption of the agenda, and I'll look to Cami to let us know if there are any changes to this evening's agenda.
The agenda will be as presented.
Very, very well. And so then I'll look to the council for a motion on the agenda, adoption of the agenda.
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
And a second.
Second.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Chateau,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
and Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. This is public forum now. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public forum. Each person's comment shall be limited to 4 minutes. Each person is entitled to speak on any non-agendized item only once at any meeting. Brief questions by council members for clarifications may be posed and answered, and council members may make requests that items be placed on future agendas. But in accordance with state law, no substantive discussion or action may take place unless and until the matter properly appears on the agenda. I'll look to Cammie to see if we have public comment at this point.
Yes, we do. Marilyn, I'm going to allow you to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself and address the council.
Let's
And
see.
you'll need to-
I'm seeing the mute on. Yeah, if Ms. Coy can unmute.
Okay, I've tried.
There you are.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, I'm Marilyn Coy, and I live at 1221 Springbrook Court, right off of Spring Street. And I just wanted to voice my my dismay with the current or the new bike lanes. We were opposed to it 2 years ago, and what they put out there now is even beyond what I thought they were going to be. And I think they're really ugly, and I don't think they're going to be used very much. And I don't even see if you can pass a car driving down Spring Street now in the proper lanes. And I think it's going to be a real hassle for residents. And we don't see that many bikes around. And to have such, I don't know what the word is, but filling up that space. So I just wanted to go on record as being very opposed to what they have done out there. Thank you.
Thank you for the call and the public comment. Is there additional public comment?
No.
Seeing no additional public comment, we'll close the public comment and we'll bring it back to our reports by staff and city council, future agenda items, and AB 1234 reports. These are reports by staff and or council members on items of general interest. Brief questions for clarification may be posed and answered, and council members may request that items be placed on a future agenda, except under certain circumstances. The Brown Act prohibits any other discussion or action by the city council. I'll look first to our city attorney and then to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Ellsworth. I just had a report on closed sessions that we have had since our last regular meeting. On May 27th, the City Council held a closed session special meeting to discuss public employee appointment for our permanent city manager position and labor negotiations. On June 10th, the City Council had a special closed session to discuss existing litigation that the city is involved with Picasso. And today, prior to this meeting, the city held a special meeting closed session to discuss existing litigation that the city has with Water Audit California and labor negotiations. And with both of the labor negotiations items, those were with the Police Officers Association, the St. Helena's Employees Association, and unrepresented employees, and there is no reportable action from any of those three closed session meetings. And that is all I have to report.
Thank you very much. And I'll look to Mr. McCann, our city manager.
Thank you very much. We've got a handful of reports to give tonight, and I'll start with Cammie, who is going to discuss a little bit about the preliminary results from the election that was held on June 7th. Kenny?
Thank you. I'll be reporting on 3 different pieces of that election, the unofficial apparent election results, and beginning with Measure G, which was discussing shall the position of a directly elected mayor be eliminated? The apparent top vote was no. And then in regards to Measure H, our GO bond, the apparent top vote was yes. And then finally, our supervisor for the 3rd district position, our apparent top vote was for Ann Cottrell, and our apparent second vote was for John Dunbar, and our apparent third vote for Anna Chuteau. And for our apparent top vote regarding Ann Cottrell, she did not receive 50% of the votes for county supervisor, and therefore there will be a runoff at the November election between Ann Cottrell and John Dunbar.
Thank you, Cami. I'll add that Measure L also failed at the ballot box. That was the measure relative to fire prevention and defensible space. And then I'd like to ask April Mitz if she could just add a little bit to the next steps relative to Measure H passing and the general obligation bond.
Thank you very much. So the next steps for the GO bond is I am actually setting up a meeting with the city's municipal advisor as well as our bond counsel. And this meeting will happen the week after next. And we are going to be discussing the next steps for what we do for bond issuance. In the past, when we've issued debt, we have done direct placement because the market was very favorable. After speaking with and talking with our municipal advisor, it looks like we more than likely will go out to competitive. But what we'll do is we will prepare everything and then present it to City Council at a future meeting. In addition, I'll be working closely with Mark Rincon to look at the projects that are on the list that were associated with the GO bond and look at the timing of the projects to make a determination of how much we're going to issue at what point in time. So that will be something forthcoming, but it is something that we are moving forward with. In addition, I am going to add, I'm going to jump right in. We did have the first meeting of the advisory committee for the utility rate study today. So that meeting was headed up by Mandy Kellogg as well as Martine Beltran in the Public Works Department. From what I've heard, it was a very successful meeting. About 2 hours. They got their first bit of Brown Act training that Cami had done for them today. And then in addition, Raftelis did provide them with a presentation. And I heard there were some great questions and answers and dialogue. So I'm very happy to report out on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like the fire chief just to give you all a little update on fire activity and some good news relative to a grant that is coming our way. John?
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Mr. Vice Mayor, just to let you inform you that we had a few fires in the area. We had the Pope fire on Howe Mountain Road right at Pope Street on May 23rd, totaling 2.95 acres. We had the Old fire in Napa, totaling 570 acres. So fire season is here, and so is weed abatement. So all of St. Helena limits have been covered by myself, Engine 17's crew, and Fire Inspector Alec Vidler. All areas needing to be mowed or dead fuels removed have either been posted on the property via an abatement sign or a door hanger. This is what a door hanger looks like. We put this on your door, and on the back would be the violations that need to be corrected. And then if it's a blank lot, you get something like this on a stake that says you need to abate the issue promptly. So this would be a 10-day notice. Napa Valley Wine Train has started cutting their weeds south of Napa and are working up Valley. They're in Yountville right now. So they got about another 9 miles to go before they hit St. Helena. St. Helena's wine train tracks, not that bad. It's mostly more of a visual blight. There's just a few grasses here and there, but not a fire hazard. Clayton Church, City Public Works Operation Manager, and I are going to take a tour of the city's critical infrastructure tomorrow and look for defensible space at the water treatment plant and different critical infrastructures. The good news is we've been awarded phase 1 of the FEMA grant for the fuel mitigation for defensible space. which prepares for phase 2, which is the actual removal of the dead and down vegetation created by the glass fire. Mandy, Kellogg, and staff and myself will be hustling to complete the phase 1 as soon as possible. We have up to 10 months, but we want that to just be a couple of months. We anticipate phase 2 awarded this fall and spring. And the glass fire is more than a typical event that we've been working with landowners to help mitigate hazards from the glass fire's damage. Residents may contact Firewise for more assistance. Do we have any questions? All right.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Chief. Thank you, Chief Sorensen. I've got a few fire prep tips that I'll speak of when we circle around to me coming up. It was really appreciated that you're focused, so focused on this as we move into this season. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Picking up on the issue and the concern around fire safety, our Parks and Rec Director has an announcement relative to 4th of July celebrations. Dave?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. As Mr. McCann mentioned, wanted to give you an update on our plans for the 4th of July this year. So the 4th of July festivities, specifically the fireworks, is something that our staff, along with the community, have been discussing and monitoring very closely over the last several weeks. And due to the wildfire impacts that our community has endured in recent years, as well as the ongoing fire and drought conditions that our area is in, we will not be moving forward with a fireworks display this year. But instead, we're putting together some alternative activities and I think really fun ways for the community to come together and celebrate over the 4th of July weekend. So to highlight some of those areas, on Sunday, July 3rd, we'll be working in partnership with Cameo Cinema to put on a movie night out at Crane Park. This will be a good opportunity for families and community members of all ages to come out and enjoy cinema under the stars. We'll have some activities for kids before the movie, bring out some food and entertainment, and a good night out at Crane Park. The following day, on the 4th of July, we're going to continue the tradition of having our red, white, and blue bicycle parade, which will end up at Lyman Park. We're in the process of putting together the framework for a family-friendly community celebration, which will take place at Lyman Park, and that'll take place from about 3 to 6, and that will culminate with the St. Helena Community Band coming back to perform for the first time on the 4th of July since 2019, included with free root beer floats for everyone provided by A&W Root Beer. So as much as we all love the fireworks, we think we have some great opportunities for the community to come together safely this year. We do want to thank the community for staying fire safe this summer season and hope that everyone joins us on July 3rd and 4th. We ask that you stay tuned. We hope to have a more formal announcement and more event details coming later this week.
Thank you, Dave. And I really just want to thank Mr. Jans for very quickly helping us make a decision and then putting together what I think will be a really fun alternative, not really alternative, just a different way of doing it. So I really appreciate that. 2 more quick things here. We've got some very good progress being made at our City Hall move. We've got our fingers crossed for good luck tomorrow, and I'll ask Priya Nixon, who's been our project manager on this, to fill you all in.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. So I want to provide a brief report for the move to the Napa Valley College and the tenant improvements. So last week we held an informal pre-bid walkthrough at the Napa Valley College site. We had around 10 contractors show up who are interested in bidding. And tomorrow we will have our bid opening for the Napa Valley College tenant improvements. And it is expected and anticipated that we will bring forward the proposed award of bid at the June 28th City Council meeting. Thank you so much. And just a big thank you to all the individuals who have helped get this project to this point. It's very exciting.
Thank you. And I would like to echo those thanks. A lot of people putting a lot of time and work into this, and seeing it move forward is really tremendous. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One last thing, just a reminder that there are ample opportunities for folks in the community and you need not be in city limits for some of these opportunities, to serve on a board or commission and participate in a variety of very interesting and rewarding activities around sustainability, Parks and Rec, Planning Commission, all sorts of really interesting opportunities. So if you have an interest, I suggest you take a look at our website. There are applications there, or contact the city clerk. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCann. And now we'll look to our council to see if anybody has any items to bring forward. I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to point out the two events that I went to. First was the redwood tree planting and oak planting at our wastewater treatment plant. That was wonderful to see that we added more redwood trees to that project because some do not make it. And so we had community members coming out, including the scouts. The Boy Scouts were out there. I know we had a school board member. We had Norma Faris, who seems to be at everything, and a bunch of other parents and children all out there planting with both Paul Azimuth and the Redwood Tree Project, as well as Napa RCD, that are partnering and brought a bunch of 10-year-old oak trees. So we added to the project. And now there's some beautiful oaks planted closer to the river. And as a reminder, all of this is being watered with drip irrigation from the water that's left over from the wastewater treatment plant. So we're not using extra water. It's a great source out there, and it was very inspiring to see. So many people came. Mayor Ellsworth, you were there as well, correct?
Yes, I was.
Yes,
Yep.
It was great to see you.
Thank you.
And then the other event, just more recently on Saturday, the St. Helena Historical Society had the birthplace plaque. There was a dedication that happened that had been put on hold because of COVID. So you can see that near the station, right in the Sunshine parking lot. That was a wonderful event that was put on. You can see the actual video of the ceremony if you go to the Historical Society's page on Facebook. Marian made sure to capture that with some photos. So both were great events. I also wanted to note that just with that plaque, a community member reached out and made a comment about when are we going to also acknowledge the Chinatown that we had here in St. Helena. And I just wanted to remind everybody that that was an item that came up when we did our special meeting on what we could do more with racial equity. That was one of the items that we have on there. And I believe that we're in a place where we're looking for good partners to help make that happen. But I want to make sure we don't lose sight of that project.
Thank you. And I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy, and then I believe I saw a hand from Council. Okay, so Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. I have two items to report. First, I'd just like to draw everyone's attention to an action taken recently by the Board of Supervisors in response to the executive order issued by the governor in March having to do with our water crisis. And there are new requirements for well permits for new or replacement wells in Napa County, both for wells located within the subbasin, the main aquifer on the valley floor, and for wells located outside. But within the subbasin, the permits will not issue unless the proposed groundwater use does not exceed 0.3 acre-feet per acre, and the proposed well must be located at least 1,500 feet from a stream. There's more than that, but those were the points that really caught my eye. This is a big reduction in terms of how the county looks at demand on the valley floor. Until now, the basic rule of thumb for projects on the valley floor was that up to an acre of 1 acre foot of water per acre of land was considered consistent with the recharge of the aquifer. And this number has been reduced by 70%. So we're at the beginning of a whole new era in terms of groundwater use and regulation. I thought it would be good for everyone to know. And that does apply to all new well permits within the city of St. Helena, since only the county has a health department with the authority to issue well construction permits. Secondly, I wanted to report to the council that I had the opportunity Friday to join a group of about 25 people at Charles Krug Winery. Aside from myself, everyone there was either a state or local government official from Zacatecas or one of the municipalities in Zacatecas, or a leader of one of the clubs organized by immigrants to the United States from Zacatecas, living here in the US. And as some of you, perhaps all of you know, there's a big component from that part of Mexico and our own community here in St. Helena and in the Napa Valley as a whole. While there, I had a conversation with the president of the municipality of Jerez, and who informed me that they are preparing a letter, which I expect we'll receive in the next week or so, proposing a sister city relationship. And so look forward to future council discussion after the formal proposal arrives. But I think we should have that within a week. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's exciting to hear about a possible sister city opportunity. And I'm seeing Council Vice Mayor Doring.
That just reminds me, we have another sister city opportunity that's pending that Councilmember Hall has brought up. So we should maybe focus on those at the same time. I just want to take a minute of your time to report out. As you know, I'm the liaison for the council on the ATSC. For those in the community who don't know what that is, that's the Active Transportation and Sustainability Committee. On June 1st, the committee received an excellent presentation by our staff, namely Prey and Nixon, regarding the potential ban of gas-powered leaf blowers. I know that's something that a lot of the community is interested in pursuing. And in addition to that, we had a presentation on the potential adoption of reasonable foodware ordinance. That one's not as far along as the gas-powered leaf blower ordinance, but the staff, as I said, gave an excellent presentation. They presented various sample ordinances from others in Napa County. There was a discussion at the ATSC regarding a rebate program for persons or businesses wishing to purchase a leaf blower powered by electricity or battery to comply with this ordinance, should it be adopted. On both of these issues, particularly there's a fair amount of discussion regarding the necessity and prudence of having a really robust education and outreach program as we slowly move through that, so folks can get used to that. As I understand it, that proposed ordinance for the gas-powered leaf blowers, part of what I'm talking about, is going to be presented at the July meeting for the ATSC, and then after that will come to council. With respect to the other potential ordinance, the reusable foodware and compostable foodware ordinances, as you may know, this is directly related to our goals to take measures to counter climate change. Obviously, this has to do with reduction of solid waste in our landfill. This type of an ordinance would require reusable foodware and at dine-in restaurants and locations, and also all takeout foodware such as plates, containers, and that kind of thing would be compostable or all aluminum. And plastic-lined paper containers would be banned. Again, this is at the early stages of development. We're still looking at other ordinances, and again, there's our ATSC committee recommended, and I happen to agree with this. I think it makes sense to have a really, really strong educational program before we get too far along on both of these ordinances. So that's that. I continue to serve on NBTA. A lot going on there in the transportation field. I'm still serving on the steering committee for Blue Zones and just doing all kinds of other things as the vice mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. I just had a follow-on to the vice mayor's comments about the compostable foodwares. One other element of the new state law 1383 that went into place is ensuring that we have an active food recovery program. So not only how do we keep compostables out of the landfill, but how do we actually get food to folks who need it in short order? And just I'm not sure, as a council, we haven't discussed that yet, but at some point we will need to do that. Every municipality is charged with having it done. And I'm not sure the best way to go about it. I've had some early conversations with folks in the industry about it, but more thought should be set aside at some point to help us figure out how to do that. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So those are our reports from our council, and I'm seeing here that I want to recognize that Mr. Camello has come on, and there'll be an item coming up in our discussions this evening, bringing on Mr. Camello as our new city manager, and we'll have an opportunity to talk with him when we get to that item. But I just wanted to recognize his joining us here this evening, and I'm going to just do a little bit of echoing Chief Sorensen on the fire safe issues. Fire prep, it's fire season again. It's a challenging time of year as we get here, but getting this in everybody's bandwidth, everybody's thought process when we talk to people, whether it's at community groups, faith groups, sporting events, bocce, we all start talking about how we're preparing as a community to work together as a community through these challenges that we faced before, and done remarkably well in working together. So I've got a few things to read here. With warmer, drier weather upon us, this is the time to remind our community of the need to refocus on our wildfire preparedness efforts. It's time to help ourselves and all of our neighbors ensure that we're all prepared personally and within our households for wildfire season and other potential public emergencies. There are some simple tools and tips we should all follow to keep ourselves safe. That's keeping our go bags ready with water, clothing, and essential documents. That's if we need to leave immediately, we have a bag that's already packed, ready to go. We make the lists, the grab lists of essential items, keepsakes, documents, photos you may need to grab if immediately evacuated. Share with your family and friends and neighbors your family and household emergency plans. Clear debris and excess vegetation and consider home hardening and defensible space efforts. Keep your vehicles fueled up or charged up and your cell phones charged up. Maintain and double check your communication plans. Check devices, lists of emergency phone numbers, evacuation signs to inform emergency responders, etc. Check in with your neighbors to help with neighborhood preparedness. One of the supervisors had an anecdotal story that you don't want to meet your neighbor in the middle of the night in your bathrobe for the first time in an evacuation situation. So knowing your neighbors, getting to know what your neighborhood plan is, very important. So with that, our St. Helena Fire Safe Council and the Napa Community Organizations Active in Disaster, that's COAD, and Napa Community's Firewise Foundations can help. So folks can go to napafirewise.org or napavalleycoad.org to learn more. Our fire safe leaders in St. Helena are Chris Warner. He's at 415-309-9572. And Jeff Farmer. He's at 707-227-8371. They've just been remarkable in helping bring our community together on these fire safe efforts and working really tightly with Chief Sorensen and the fire department and doing all we can to protect our town, the perimeter, and stay safe in any emergency. Also, if an evacuation is called for, it helps everyone to know your zone ahead of time. So that's where Zone Haven comes in. So you can go to zonehaven.com and to learn more about your evacuation zone by looking up your address there. I know it sounds like a broken record, but we just have to keep talking about it so everybody in the community is prepared. So that's on our fire safe efforts. And I just want to also touch on our water conservation efforts. Every drop we save today can help us later as we work through the drier months. So I just want to keep encouraging folks. Everybody's doing an excellent job. Let's just keep it up with the water conservation. So with that, we'll move now to our consent calendar. Oh, I'm seeing Vice Mayor Doring.
Just a brief comment, Mayor. Thank you. You know, we asked our community to support a GO bond. It was somewhat of a controversial measure. You know, folks had different ideas regarding the policy decisions we made as a council. I just want to take a minute to thank our community for putting its trust in us and putting that forward to the community and significantly, substantially supporting that measure. I think it's going to be critically important for our community. I also want to take a moment to thank all those who worked, maybe went door to door, helped with the campaign and drafting the supporting information. Thank you to the community and thank all those who did that hard work, that mundane work, your efforts, and thank our staff, frankly, from months ago, sort of slowly but surely moving forward and developing all of the staff reports and all the information that we needed to move this along. We should celebrate when we can because that's a big victory for us. It will help us. Obviously, we need a lot more money than that, as Councilmember Hall can attest to, but it's a step in the right direction. Thank you, St. Helens, for your support.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Doring. I think that is really critical to say thank you to the town, to the staff, everybody who worked to push this forward. So thank you very much. And thank you for remembering to acknowledge that. That's very much appreciated. So with that, we'll move now to our consent items and we'll move through them. I will call the numbers, and if folks on the council or in the community want to pull one, please let me know. There'll be a few that I read at the end here related to employment. And so we'll start with consent item number 1. I'm sorry, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, 7.7, 7.8, and now we have 7.9 that I'm required to read. So this is 7.9, Assistant City Manager April Mitz Employment Agreement. In accordance with California Code Section 54953C3, the recommended final action for Assistant City Manager provides for an annual base salary of $181,406, Step B, with all other benefits consistent with the benefits offered to other department head level employees of the city. And then we'll move to item 7.10, and I'll read, this is Administrative Services Director Mandy Kellogg, Employment Agreement in accordance with California Code Section 54953C3. The recommended final action for Administrative Services Director provides an annual base salary, $150,394, Step C, with all other benefits consistent with the benefits offered to other department head level employees of the city. So those are our consent items. And with that, seeing none pulled, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar. I did want to make just 2 quick comments to staff. I just wanted to thank Ms. Mitz, Ms. Kellogg, Mr. Rincon-Ibarra, and Mr. Beltran for your work on the CIP, as well as the report formerly known as the CAFR. I think it's the ACFR now. So you guys know I like to read that stuff, believe it or not, and I've gone through all of that. Those are very solid reports. Really appreciate it. Particularly the CIP. I think it's much more realistic and much more achievable than I think what we had prior. which is much better. So thank you very much. That's it. Otherwise, I would move to approve the consent calendar as is.
I'll second the motion and everything Mr. Hall has just said.
Thank you. And I'm seeing Mr. McCann. I don't know if he had a clarifying point, and then Mr. Hardy or Councilmember Hardy. Mr. McCann, was there something that you needed to clarify?
I just wanted to give Cammie a chance to help us if there are any public comments or any members of the public who desire to pull anything.
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. And then I will circle to Councilmember Hardy.
Mr. McCann just covered my concern. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So with that, we have a motion, we have a second. So can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Shuto, and Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. And with that, moving forward, just would like to extend the ongoing gratitude to Dr. Mitz and Ms. Kellogg for the ongoing work, and great to have you here working with us every day. So thank you. And I'll look to City Manager McKeon.
Yes, before we move on to the public hearings, I just want to thank the City Council for your action on these 10 or so items, all very significant, moving important projects forward, and not least of which include the creation of an assistant city manager position, follows from council's, I think, astute recognition of the need to have such talent and to move Mandy Kellogg, well-deserved, up the ladder. I appreciate your confidence in me. This has been a very quick bundle of recommendations, and I'm very happy that you agree with my judgment that these two women ought to be with our organization for a while longer and in positions where I think their deep talent can really help the community. So thank you for the confidence, and congratulations to April and Mandy on this new adventure.
We were very pleased to see this come forward, so thank you. So with that, we'll move forward now, and we're going to get into our public hearings. This is item 8.1, and this is discussion of potential activities and projects for inclusion in the 2022 Community Development Block Grant, that's the CDBG applications, and one, consideration of approval of a resolution approving applications for funding, and two, the execution of a grant agreement and any amendments thereto from the 2021-2022 funding year of the state CDBG program. And this is by Mandy Kellogg.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So this item is a continued discussion from the public hearing conducted on May 24th to discuss potential activities to be included in the Community Development Block Grant Program 2022 application submittal. 4 projects were discussed during the public hearing. The first was a housing assistance housing rehabilitation program. The funding would be used to continue the owner-occupied rehabilitation program to assist low-income homeowners whose primary residence is in need of repairs, improvements, or reconstruction necessary to meet federal, state, or local building codes, and for correction of all health and safety deficiencies. The program would be managed in collaboration with the Napa Housing Authority. The second was a planning and technical assistance. This funding would have been used to conduct site feasibility analysis to compare various properties in the city for their affordable housing development potential. The third was a public services rental subsistence program. The city would partner with Up Valley Family Centers to identify low to moderate income households that needed rental assistance. And the fourth was an economic development activity, which would be used for the sewer lateral project related to the downtown streetscape. At the end of the public hearing, council proposed bringing forth 2 resolutions at the following meeting. The first included all 4 projects to submit applications for funding, with reduced funding requests so that the aggregate amount did not exceed the maximum of 1.5 million. The other was to include only 3 of the 4 projects with the proposed maximum funding with an aggregate amount of 1.5 million. The 3 projects selected would be based on the probability of application approval. Following the May 24th meeting, staff learned that only 3 applications may be submitted during this funding period. Based on discussion with the Planning and Building Director DeRosa, we felt that the planning and technical assistance application wasn't necessarily needed due to work that was already being done with the housing element update. Therefore, staff is recommending the following activities to be included in the 2022 NOFA applications: the Housing Assistance Rehab Program for $500,000, Public Services Rental Assistance for $500,000, and the Economic Development for the Sewer Lateral Replacement Project at $500,000. And with that, I'll turn it over to council for a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And for a little clarity, this was I'm sorry, my my staff report just disappeared. I apologize. I'm just bringing it back up here. So in terms of
Mayor, we're
yes.
looking for a public hearing to have any further input on staff's recommendations that we will then move forward into our application with the folks at the Community Development Block Grant.
So is your suggestion to first open the public comment and then bring it back to council?
Yes, if you have any questions, any clarifying questions of staff, you can ask us now. If not, open the public hearing, take any testimony, close that public hearing, have your discussion and deliberations, and then we'd be looking for a motion on the resolution that is in the packet.
Okay, very good. And I did have one question. We had talked in the past, and I believe it was resolved at the last meeting, but the one grant that had been looking at the parking aspect over at Hunts Grove area, and it was determined that that did not fit into the current criteria. Is that correct?
It's not an eligible activity at this time because it's considered a construction and they're not allowing those under this NOFA.
Okay. I believe I recall that. So thank you for clarifying it. Are there any other questions from council before I open the public comment? So seeing none, we'll look to the public and see if there is any input from the public here. I'm seeing Mr. Walsh, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Since this is technically a public hearing, if you could just note the time that it opened for the minutes, and if there is no public comment, the time that it then closes.
Okay, so we opened the public hearing at 6:46, and I'll look to our city clerk to see if there is any input from the public.
And there is no public comment.
And no public comment. It's still 6:46, and so we'll close the public hearing at 6:46 and bring it back to the council to see if there's any input or discussion. I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Work. Ms. Kellogg, I really appreciate it, and I love seeing the rental assistance program in there. I was curious about if you have any data for who can apply for that rental assistance, knowing our community is unique and how expensive it is to rents are in our small town, and if people can qualify that are in the middle, not just the very bottom, because I know I've heard from different people in our community how hard it is to be able to afford rent, especially since the fires, just finding places. And I wondered who's going to be able to qualify for this. And if there's any consideration for our kind of communities where it's even more expensive and more limited to live.
Yeah, the qualifications is based on the Napa County median income. And so they do allow for low to moderate income. So moderate people fall within that moderate income category can be eligible as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional council input. Seeing none, these were items we had discussed and we knew coming forward. And so with that, The recommended action is an approval of the resolution approving applications for funding and the execution of a grant agreement and any amendments thereto from the 2021-2022 funding year of the state CDBG program. Is there a motion for this? I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve staff's recommendation along with heartfelt thanks. This was great to get a report back responsive to the council discussion and direction. Makes our job a whole lot easier. And I know it takes a lot of hard work on staff side to do that. Thank you.
Second that.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yeah.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Shuto,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
and Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you for all the excellent work on this. So that takes us now to, we're going to go into old business, item 9.1. This is discussion and direction regarding the process and appointments to boards, commissions, committees, and ad hoc assignments. This is prepared by our city clerk, Cindy Jafopoulos, and Mr. McCann is going to report to us.
Great, thank you very much. This item does follow from a request that Councilmember Hardy made at our May 24th meeting. Fellow council members agreed and set this for the agenda this evening. It is a discussion item, so there's no formal action to be taken. There's no amendment of our existing rules of procedure or amendment of our municipal code, but there is an opportunity for discussion and direction for future action if you wish. As you know, we have two documents which provide guidance and to our practice around appointments to boards, commissions, other bodies. The municipal code has language in it, as well as the city council rules of procedure for the conduct of council meetings and standards of conduct. So we have two documents that we've used over the years to guide the city council's consideration of applicants and appointment processes. Councilmember Hardy has asked that the matter be placed before the council so that you all can have an opportunity to look at our existing practices and perhaps suggest fine tuning or change to those if you think that's appropriate. We've included in the packet both the relevant section from the municipal code as well as the relevant section. In fact, I think we included the whole darn thing from the council's rules of procedure. We've also done a little surveying of communities in the Napa area to see what the practice might be in other communities, and that's summarized in the staff report. I think you can see that there are a variety of ways to address this issue. Different communities tackle it in different fashions as it suits their particular needs. So I'd be happy to walk through the various methods. I think you are all familiar with our practice, and I think the staff report lays out pretty clearly what the other choices are. So if you like, I can walk through it. If not, happy to listen and take your direction. We can bring something back in future if you so desire.
Thank you. First, I thought I would check in with the council. Councilmember Hardy brought this forward. I didn't know if there was anything specific he wanted to discuss related to this, or points to bring up before perhaps, Jim, you give us a little overview, or any other of the council members.
Well, I'm happy to explain why I asked for this subject to be agendized, but you know, if the council would like to hear more from Mr. McCann first, then I would wait.
I'll look to the council, but for me, just getting some context from you, Councilmember Hardy, might just help shape the discussion if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. So I'm pretty sure that the process we have with the council ranking applicants and then submitting the ranking to the city clerk and so on was a direct response actually to what happened at the city council meeting when I was originally appointed to the planning commission. It was not something one easily forgets. There were 3 vacancies on the planning commission. There were 11 applicants. The mayor, without, to the best of my recollection, seeking any council discussion, once the matter was introduced, proceeded to go through his list and nominate appointments one by one. The first 8 nominations he made were rejected on a roll call vote, thus leaving the last 3 of the nominations he made for appointment to the council. It was obviously a very tense meeting in terms of the underlying conflict between the mayor and some other members of the council. But what has really concerned me the most about that meeting ever since was the effect that it had on our applicant pool. Pretty sure that not a single one of the 8 applicants rejected on a roll call vote have ever reapplied.
Council Member Hardy, just a point of privilege, if I may. I just would like to clarify that that was a previous mayor than me. I just for point of discussion.
I did not mean to be ambiguous about that. That was your predecessor, to be sure. So, you know, I infer just from the way in which the council practice was amended that the notion has been that by providing the mayor with individual council members sort of ranked order of applicants, that kind of outcome that happened back in 2017 could or would be avoided, and the results have been mixed. The current system puts the nomination process in control of the mayor, since only the mayor can nominate, and we have seen applicants once again who had and now what happens is that the rankings are a matter of public record. So applicants who ranked high but did not get appointed either know about it in the moment or find out afterwards. So we've still got a system in process that has actually left applicants very unhappy, and unhappy applicants do not reapply. That continues to be true. And from time to time, we actually find ourselves very short of applicants for important positions. We've also seen the power of nomination used as a kind of veto power, where and this one is on you, Mayor Ellsworth, and in fairness to your predecessor, Mayor Galbraith, who is responsible, at least in part, for the disaster of 2017. But we've seen a mayor refuse to nominate someone favored by a majority of the council. So I really think we can do better. And I have 2 suggestions I'm throwing out for discussion and consideration. I don't have any I'm not making any assumptions about where this discussion will go as far as what the rest of you think. But I know we have appointments to the Planning Commission coming up. The Planning Commission appointments are in many ways typically our most important appointments. And we really need to have a process in place that encourages people to apply rather than discouraging them. So first suggestion is that we eliminate the ranking process. The inevitable consequence of the ranking process is that not only are there losers, there are always people when you have more applicants than you have positions who are not going to get appointed, but we've now added an extra edge to that by having someone clearly identifiable as the least favored choice. That's not necessary. And I think it is a discouraging experience for applicants that we should seek to avoid. So I would suggest that we eliminate the ranking, but I think the overall experience, and we can see that the challenges are really independent of who holds the office. I think we would do much better to amend the code to delete the power of nomination presently vested in the mayor's office. I think anyone should be able to nominate. I don't think the process needs to be difficult at all or discouraging. I've seen this done many times in many contexts. Chair of the meeting does a straw poll in which one seeks only affirmative information. You know, who's the first choice? Who's the second choice? You get just enough information out in front of everyone so that there's a sense of direction and it's easily possible to make a nomination, a motion to appoint that will pass, and no excuse for doing otherwise. And I think all of the discouraging events that have literally shrunk our pool of applicants in the last 5-6 years, however long it's been in total, I think we have a real correction. I don't think the ranking system is a real correction. And those are the thoughts with which I brought this agenda item forward. I am looking forward to hearing what everyone else thinks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for giving us, framing that for us. I think that's very helpful. And I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Hardy, for bringing this up. I think the more that we can do to be welcoming and encourage people to participate, the better we'll be. So I'm glad that we're just talking about what kind of improvements we can make. I'm open to your suggestion about anyone can nominate. I just wonder, what if somebody, one of us, isn't skilled at that straw poll, and then we, put somebody forward that once again isn't the one that has enough votes. So I wonder, I'm interested in hearing more thoughts about that, and I'm open to it, but also I was interested in the third option that the city of Napa does, where the full city council interview process and ballot votes. The applicant with the greatest votes is appointed and approved by the majority of the council. That I don't think is ranked. It's just a simple vote, and then we have the answer, and it's clear. I see your eyes working. I'd be interested to hear others' thoughts on that one.
I have some comments, if there are other council comments. So I think that we are evolving a system here that clearly has had problems, and we're trying to find a way forward here. The idea that we want this to be encouraging for community members to step forward, I think, is important. I will say, in a little bit of balance, the council has also vetoed qualified applicants, which has caused some rancor on that side of it too. So there's a little both sides here, but I do think we can work to come up with a solution that either way creates a better scenario. So looking at these different options, I think as Councilmember Chateau brought forward, how they're looking at this in Napa, maybe a way and wanting to get council input. Also, Mr. McCann, I don't know if in your experience, have you seen ways that this can work, come forward, allow folks to come forward? Certainly, oftentimes there's more applicants than there are positions. If you're lucky, sometimes we get into a situation where there are not enough applicants. But is there a hybrid solution to what we're seeing in terms of the recommendations that you would think could be pared down to consider?
I've seen some, I've worked with examples that are really outlined in the survey and the samples that we have from Napa County. I don't know that there are others that I would recommend. I can tell you there are a few others that I would not recommend that are messy or messier than the experience that Mr. Hardy has recounted. So there's some examples to avoid, but I think the ones that are here seem to make sense. I think the more simple and straightforward it is, the better. I think Mr. Hardy is correct that, you know, when folks who generally are sometimes neophytes to some of this put their hat into the ring, I think we need to treat them with respect and treat them gingerly, so that you know, if they are not selected, they had a good experience and they come back again. So I think that's a very good thing. I can say that my experience in Mill Valley, where we had substantial, very strong community involvement, we frequently would have interviews by the council of the candidates, and council members would share, to make it more personal, that they themselves had been through the interview process multiple times and were not selected the first time. So please don't take it as, you know, any type of assessment, but rather, you know, some folks have more experience and just come back next time. So I think you have some good examples to select from, and I think it's a good conversation to have.
And in terms of time frame with the Planning Commission applications coming up, you know, we know that in our conversations with Mr. Camello coming up, who will be here with us, we certainly want to create a system that works for him, you know, with his input. But we also have a timeline here too. And so if we were to look at this and try to come up with something, when would you suggest it could be brought back, Mr. McCann?
I'm not certain of the close on the application period for the boards and commissions, but I do believe that's coming up relatively quickly. So we would need to have something in place fairly quickly. Perhaps working with our city attorney, we may have the ability to extend some terms of those folks who are on our groups. And then also, if their term expires, it does not necessarily mean that the groups are not able to perform their function. They may just have a seat or two vacant for a meeting or so until we can get back to them with the changes in the ultimate appointments.
Okay, so I'm seeing our vice mayor. I'm also seeing our city attorney. Mr. Vice Mayor, may I check in with the city attorney to see if he has some input here, or would you like to go first?
No, that's fine. I do have a question directed at the city attorney, so he may actually be answering it. So I'll wait.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The only comment I wanted to make was in terms of timing. Any changes that we would make to address the mayoral appointment aspect of this would require change to ordinance. So that requires first and second readings, and it doesn't go into effect for another 30 days after that. So that, you know, pushes any decision out essentially 2 months from today, even if we brought it back at the next meeting. So it's, you know, so we need to keep that in mind. If we if whenever we bring it back, it'll be another 45 days before it's actually effective.
Okay, thank you. That gives us some help on the timeline. I'll look to our vice mayor.
First of all, I think I tend to agree with Councilmember Hardy's sense about the ranking. I mean, on the one hand, it provides a fair amount of transparency, but it may not be the message we want to send to our folks when we're trying to actively encourage participation. So I'm open to maybe eliminating that and trying another option. I guess I have a question regarding the actual authority of the mayor, what authority the mayor has. There is some difference between a charter city and a general law city, and state law, I know, sets out some of the basic powers and responsibilities of a mayor. And I don't know if the city attorney can comment on that, because I have not looked at that statute in a while. Sorry to catch you off guard. We can wait if you don't have an answer right now, but that's something that's top of mind for me right now.
Sure. So I can't tell you what they are off the top of my head, but I can say in a general law city, the mayoral position is primarily, ceremonial, unless there are specific things that the council has designated for them. In this case, you've created this appointment process, but that is not a requirement under state law. I do know that. I can't tell you exactly what they are off the top of my head, but I do know that is not one of the things that is required by state law.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to look to the public here. So I believe certainly an evolution of where we are is important. I think a lot of great points brought up today. So, but I'll open the public comment here, and we'll see if we have anybody with input.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, so we'll close public comment, bring it back to the council, and then in terms of discussion direction, I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Sure. Well, I'll make a motion. We'll see where this goes. I move that we delete the ranking process from the council rules of procedure. This simply puts the onus on the mayor as chair of the meeting to find an affirming and positive way to find out, what the council thinks of the applicants. It's I think that's something that can be handled very gracefully, and I'm sure that Mayor Ellsworth is capable of that. So that's my motion, that we delete the ranking system from our process.
If I may, just further discussion for whoever's mayor, is it appropriate to have some type of structure with that? That my only concern is if we eliminate the ranking process and we have no identified structure, do we get into another kind of difficult situation? And that's where I'm wondering if we can analyze or boil down a little bit more some of the other cities to see if, as we eliminate the ranking, we're implementing something that we know at least gives us some structure. That's just my thought. And I'm seeing Mr. McCann.
Yes, thank you. Really a question for our city attorney. I just want to help the council through this. The item that we have set is a discussion item, and I want to ensure that if there is a motion, the motion is in line with the discussion item rather than a motion to take formal action and amend the rules of procedure. I don't believe that the rules are before the council for amendment, but rather direction on what our next steps should be. Just some clarity on that, Ethan.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you that the way at least the discussion is structured in the staff report, it did not suggest that they would be taking action tonight. I think Councilmember Hardy's direction could be to to direct staff to return with that amendment to the rules of procedure, to delete that, the writing procedure, and we could bring it back to consent at the next meeting.
Councilmember Hardy.
My motion was poorly worded, and I knew better. It is that direction to bring an action back to amend the procedure that I intended. So please consider the motion so amended.
And Councilmember Hardy, my thoughts on looking at some type of structure to also bring back with that, boiled down perhaps from the Napa. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a personal view, and I know others may think differently, but I think it actually works best if everyone involved has some responsibility for how they conduct the meeting. And it's, as I say, it's not really very difficult. It simply requires soliciting the thoughts of other council members about the top one or two applicants. And one can go in a series of iterations of that discussion when there are a lot of vacancies to fill. But what I have seen suggests to me that trying to model or modify council member or mayor conduct through formal rules doesn't really work particularly well. So I think at the end of the day, in this particular setting where the concern is about what the applicant experience is and how the process works within the council, the simplest solution is best because it gives everyone a vested interest in having things go smoothly. It gives whomever makes the motion, the mayor, if the mayor retains the power of nomination, a vested interest in seeing that motion pass, which requires soliciting the thought of council members.
Mr. Mayor,
yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, if I can just jump in for a sec, maybe we'll ask the city attorney, just from a procedural standpoint, we have a motion on the floor, and I think before we get into discussion and deliberation, we probably need a second, unless it's just a question clarifying that motion. Mr. Walsh, can you help me with this?
Yeah, I think that would be the best step at this point, is to entertain a second, and then we could have further discussion and the opportunity for potential friendly amendments to the motion.
Councilmember Chateau.
I'd like an opportunity to do a friendly amendment that it would be any member of the council can make the nomination with the majority of the council approval.
Responding to the amendment, and I believe that is in order for me since I made the motion. That means that we're amending the motion to call for, or to direct staff to bring back an amendment to the municipal code. And I'm fine with that. I just want to be sure that you understand, Councilmember Chateau, that this is a process that will take more time, as the city attorney has explained, but that's just fine. And I will amend the motion as you've proposed so that we can get to next steps. Thank you.
Then I will second.
And so just with a little bit more discussion, I just want to see if there's a value, because what I'm having a little trouble visualizing precisely the motion. And if there's one option that you're discussing, is it a value to look at, 2 or 3, boiled down options of this evolution? That's my just putting it out there, that if we're bringing this together and boiling it down, having it written out so there's sort of an understanding of it and what the potential sort of ripples of it are, is there a value of looking at it in comparison to another simpler option? Mr. Vice Mayor, Mr. Doran, do you have any clarifying thoughts there, or Mr. Walsh?
So the reason I raised my hand, Mayor, is and I apologize if I got caught up in a conversation, I missed it, but I just wanted to make sure that we also took public comment on this item. I'm not sure if we have, and I apologize if we have and I've just forgotten.
I think we did, but we did. I'm looking at Cami.
Okay, thank you.
If I look to Mr. Doring, do you have a thought here in terms of proceeding here?
Well, I don't have I have an opinion. I see what's going on. I see the various policies. My sense is if you eliminate the ballot and then you try out how that works with retaining the mayor's authority to make that nomination, the mayor is still going to have to do a fair amount of work. I just see it as being unwieldy and sort of something that could kind of run amok when you have everybody who can make a nomination. I mean, I don't know, I'm a very process-oriented person, as you probably all can tell. And I just want to make sure that, there's things about the Brown Act, who's interviewing who and who's doing that work behind the scenes in terms of getting those folks. And it really comes down to a matter of trust, and the goodwill that's built up by that mayor to make those nominations. And so on the one hand, we're saying, well, we want to just allow anyone to do that, but I don't know. So I'm having mixed emotions. I'm really not wedded to this issue, frankly. It's not really up here. The point that I am wedded to is making our applicants feel comfortable, making them want to continue to apply. That to me is important, and that resonates with me. I'm not quite there on the other part. So maybe someone could separate those emotions and we can work a little bit further on the mayor's powers. That's how I feel right now. And I'm open to more input from everybody as we move forward.
My thought is maybe one more round of clarification, just boiling it down so that we look at a couple different options so that we don't sort of just go with one thing and not have it fully considered what the ramifications might be, so that there's just a little bit more perhaps process in there. But I'm certainly in favor of moving forward with something and evolving this. And so Councilmember Hardy, I don't know what your thoughts are there in terms of.
Well, to respond to Vice Mayor Doring's comment or concern, process-wise, and specifically, Vice Mayor, with respect to your concern about the Brown Act, et cetera, I think the interview process should continue as part of, I think we usually do those as special meetings prior to the regular meeting, which appointments are made. I think all of that can and should happen in public. And I think once that is done, we will have a better process with every council member in an equal position with respect to the possibility of introducing a motion to appoint someone. And anyone who makes that motion will want it to succeed. And that requires a tactful discussion at council level about the applicants who've been interviewed. This may come more easily to some than to others. I'm sure that's inevitably true, but I think what happens then is that those who have the best feel for it help the discussion, and then the motions follow. I know we can do this. I know it may seem a little bit scary because no one except myself has seen the council approach appointments in that fashion, but I really think it's much easier than you might suspect. Again, I wholeheartedly support having a public interview process as we've been doing it. But I don't, honestly, I don't think there's any simpler approach structurally. And I think it will minimize conflicts within the council and with applicants. So I, for one, would be delighted to hear the thoughts of Councilmember Hall, who has been conspicuously silent so far. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to chime in. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think bringing this conversation forward is good. We continue. I mean, we have a lot of open, vacancies right now across the board in a number of commissions, for a number of reasons, probably. Some of which may be because of this rank issue or this process, as Councilmember Hardy has described. To Vice Mayor Doring's comments about making this more welcoming and focused on the experience of the applicants, I wholeheartedly agree. I think we read our current ordinance at, one sentence says the mayor will select somebody. The next sentence says, it's a vote of the council. So that doesn't seem to jive too well. I do like Councilmember Shuto's suggestion of the number 3 under Napa, City of Napa. Looks like that, or the American Canyon model, which is a little bit looser. I really don't know their process. I don't know how that happens. But if we do public interviews one day, like we've been doing, and we are thoughtful and careful with candidates, we're focused on positive attributes and matching those attributes against the charge of the commission, or whatever the board or committee is, then we should be able to get through it, I would think. So, I don't know how we would exactly nominate or how that gets kicked off. Again, it would be up to the chair of the committee at that time. So, the voting would happen out in the open. This isn't a secret ballot like we've been doing. That's been helpful, I think, for the council, because it allows us to keep our thoughts inside, and here it is on a piece of paper. But and there's not a lot of reasoning that goes into it publicly behind our thinking. So this would require a lot more public conversation, a lot more vetting, which I think is actually real helpful. I think those of us here, we've been working together for a couple of years now, are real comfortable with each other. I don't know what happens in the future with new people coming on the council who are new to this experience. Hopefully they're as skilled as all of you in how you care for the public when they come before us. Sometimes, I get nervous about what happens there, and if it's a very, very I wouldn't call it a loose process, but a process that has no guardrails. Again, I guess it would just default to whoever has had the most tenure here to help corral the discussion and bring it back to where it belongs. So to your point, Councilmember Hardy. So I'm in favor of this motion as well. I think it would be good to have staff, either redraft something or come back with some other alternative. Either the American Canyon or the City of Napa one is fine with me. I think let's move forward to modify it. I don't think our current system is very effective. I would agree with Councilmember Hardy's overall viewpoint there.
Thank you. And if I can just jump in with the thought that if we're in favor of moving forward, evolving this, my thought is having a few options coming back, looking at the alternatives in American Canyon and Napa, just so when we get down to that decision-making time, we've got a couple of options on the table that we can look at so that so that there is some structure, because it's not really, I mean, it's about us today, but in a couple of years or a year or 10 years, it's going to be about a different dynamic on the council. So having some guardrails, some structure for guidance for the next groups coming in, I think that's where I feel like there needs to be something. So if I look to Councilmember Hardy in terms of the motion, if we move forward with it, are you okay if just a couple of options are presented?
So long as we have draft ordinance as one of those options that deletes the power of nomination from the description of the mayor's powers and duties, I am just fine with having staff bring other alternatives to that same meeting.
Thank you. And then I'll look to Mr. McCann, not wanting to overwhelm staff, but if it looks like you've done some work boiling this down, do you feel like that's in the sites that this could, a few options could be looked at to be boiled down and brought in?
Sure, yes. I think the modifications to the municipal code are simple, straightforward. We've identified a range of options and you've narrowed that down to a few. So I think that we can easily look at those options, tune them up a little bit to maybe make them a bit more clear for our purposes and bring that whole package, an ordinance to amend the muni code and a resolution to amend our rules of procedure back to a city council meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So if there's no additional comment, we have a motion, we have a second. And so if there's no additional comment, we'll look for a roll call.
Hang on one second, Cami. Ethan?
Yeah, I just had a clarifying point. So the motion and the second was on directing staff to come back to amend with amendment to the municipal code and to direct staff to remove the ranking process from the procedures, the council procedures. So is the intent that there was a friendly amendment in there to add this additional direction of multiple other options that staff would also bring back?
That was my intent, Mr. Walsh, and I think we need to know whether there is a second for the motion as modified.
Yes, I'll second.
And I'm seeing Vice Mayor Doring.
Well, I'm just going to quote a government code section for future reference for Mr. Walsh. It's Government Code 40605 provides appointment by mayor pursuant to California Government Code section 40605. The mayor, with approval of the city council, shall make all appointments to city commissions, committees, and boards. If an appointee resigns or is otherwise removed from office prior to the expiration of the term, the mayor shall again have the right to make that appointment. I think this comes out of a staff report from 2017. So I think I raised the issue before, and I think we ought to be cautious about that part of it. I'm supporting moving forward, but with that caveat that we should do a little more research on that issue. Thank you.
And Mr. Walsh, is that something that can be wrapped into how we're discussing moving this forward?
Sure, I'll address that issue as part of the next process.
Okay, very good. So we've got the motion, the amended motion, the second on the amended motion. it looks like we have this all put in a package. So with that, Mr. McCann, are you comfortable with me calling the roll here?
Yes, I think we're ready to do that.
Okay, very well. I'll look to Cami.
I'm comfortable.
So we're good to go then.
Sorry, Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Shuto, Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
and Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes.
And I apologize. I had a little power surge here. The power went off just briefly, so apologize to the group.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So moving forward now, we're going to move into new business. This is item 10.1. And before we start this item, we were just talking about mayoral issues. And I will say one of the most heart-stopping moments in my time as a mayor was hearing our city manager deciding to move, and knowing that we have an incredible staff, incredible council. I knew we'd have a good transition, but I have to say, looking at that process certainly gets one's blood pressure up and attention very, very focused. I'd say we've been very fortunate. We've had Mr. McCann as our interim helping guide this process, and so we have Mr. Camello here this evening. This is item 10.1. Pleased to be here with everybody. I just want to give my thanks to everybody for the focus during this time, staff, council, and community. Just staying very focused as we move towards this, and very pleased to be here with this item. So this is consideration and proposed approval of a resolution appointing Anil Camello as city manager and approving the employment agreement between the city of St. Helena and Anil Camello, and approval of a resolution duly adopting and approving a publicly available pay schedule for executive management department heads, which includes a revised salary schedule for the city manager classification effective July 26, 2022. I'm going to look to Mr. McCann. I have something that I'm supposed to read, but I want to take a moment here to welcome Mr. Camello and sort of introduce him here to the community, and the council has already been through the interview process. And in terms of process, Mr. McCann, may I introduce Mr. Camello and then return to reading the agreement, or should I do that now?
Mr. Mayor, I think you can approach this any way you'd like to, so long as we get to the adoption of the agreement.
Okay, very good. So with that, I will, Mr. Camello, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for applying, coming, and going through our interview process. You've met all our council members. I'm sure you're getting to know our staff. Mr. Camello is bringing just a remarkable skill set. And if you wouldn't mind saying hello and just giving us a little bit of background and helping us get started working with you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council, for selecting me. I appreciate it. The process was very interesting, very open, and some tough, really incisive questions. So appreciate that. I'm thrilled to be selected, and I'm looking forward to starting work at the city. Also want to, by the way, make sure I congratulate Ms. Mitz and Ms. Kellogg on their appointments and promotions, well deserved. And I appreciate being here and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you. So I'm just going to read us a little bit of background so that folks get a little bit of background on you, and then we'll open it up for just a little bit of discussion. So Mr. Camello is a seasoned professional veteran with more than 25 years of public service in numerous Bay Area communities, with significant hands-on experience in budgeting and financial management, organizational development, and strategic planning. He brings a strong foundation in human resources management and community engagement. and communications, and also a real human side, as we learned in our interview process. So that balance is just a wonderful thing to have here. He has served as the interim deputy city manager for the city of Richmond since September of 2020. In the roughly 20 years prior to his work in Richmond, Mr. Camello served as a deputy administrative officer, director of human resources, personnel manager, administrative service officer, and project manager for 6 different public agencies. So just a tremendous breadth and skill set that you're bringing. And our interview process, we had council fully engaged, and I think learned about you professionally and also personally, and just want to welcome you here.
Well, thank you so very much. And by the way, I also had the pleasure of meeting the department heads, and it was nice to be able to talk to them and get to know them a little bit. I'm looking forward to getting to know them better.
Great. Is there any council input or at this point? Any thoughts at this point for Mr. Camello?
The answer, by the way, is yes to the question of the vote.
And so we've got Councilmember Chateau and Councilmember Hardy.
Warm welcome. We're lucky to have you, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Hardy.
Well, I'm afraid I'm a bit eccentric, Mr. Camello. I would like to see us act and then welcome you, so that
okay,
you have the contract in hand. And I'm ready to make a motion if it is time.
So I'm going to read then the employment agreement that we're required to read. So I'll read that now, and then we can move into the motion. So this is item 10.1, new business, city manager Anil Camello employment agreement. In accordance with California Code Section 54953 C3, the recommended final action for city manager provides for an annual base salary $235,072 with the following benefits: vehicle allowance of $500 per month, deferred compensation city match of up to $10,000 per year, a one-time housing allowance of $20,000, performance bonus of up to $10,000 per year, and benefits consistent with the benefits offered to other department head level employees of the city, except for certain leave accruals. The city manager would receive 80 hours of vacation leave as an advance on the usual accrual of vacation, and shall accrue vacation at a rate of 160 hours per fiscal year, up to a maximum amount of 240 hours. The city manager will also receive 80 hours of executive leave at the start of the agreement, will receive 80 hours of sick leave as an advance on the usual accrual of sick leave. So that's the statement that needs to be read. And with that, then we can move to a motion. I think I need to look to public comment.
Correct. Thank you.
So I will do that. I'll look to our city clerk.
There is no public comment.
Very good. We'll bring it back to the council, and we will look for any additional input or emotion. Hardy, Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. I'm going to do this as a single motion unless I'm advised that will not work. I'm not seeing any shaking heads there. So I move first that we adopt the resolution appointing Anil Camello as our city manager, and that we authorize the mayor to execute the employment agreement, and that in addition, we adopt the separate resolution authorizing an amended City of St. Helena salary schedule reflecting the updated salary level for city manager.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Chateau,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes, welcome.
and Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes, and welcome as well. And now I'll turn it over to Councilmember Hardy, who had some
So
thoughts.
now that we got the hard part done, welcome, Mr. Comello. I really look forward to working with you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to take a moment and recognize former city manager Mark Prestwich and our interim city manager Jim McCann. Just remarkable work in a smooth, steady transition during remarkable times. And, you know, everything we're going through, Measure H being one of them, a complicated situation, a lot of complexities in this handoff and transition. It's been remarkably smooth because of the professionalism of Mark Prestwich, of Jim McCann, and seeing Mr. Comello come in now. It's just, it hardens me to see this steady, smooth transition, the work of staff, the focus of council in a time where those are times of uncertainty. And we were able to stay very focused and move this forward. So thank you, everybody, for this process. And Mr. McCann, a giant thank you to you for being here and being part of this. Okay, so Mr. Comello, do we know when we're going to be looking forward to your stepping up behind the wheel here?
Yes, indeed. Mr. McCann and I have talked, and I plan to start working at the city of St. Helena on July 26th.
Very good. And so as we move forward, I'm sure you'll be paying attention to what we do and working with Mr. McCann to work on the handoff and how the transition goes forward. And I'm sure we all feel that any way that we can be helpful, please let us know, let Mr. McCann know, and we want to be as helpful and as welcoming as possible to you and your family and have you be a real part of this community. So thank you.
No, thank you very much for saying that. Yes, Jim and I have talked. We plan to schedule a couple meetings between now and my vacation, which is the week before, and that we'll be ready to hit the ground running.
That's great. Great to hear. And thank you for joining us tonight. This is really, it brings it all together.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just thank you all for the kind words and for the opportunity to help St. Helena. I've enjoyed it very much, and I look forward to the next few weeks trying to wrap a few things up and get them off the plate for Anil. And I just want to really congratulate Anil on this opportunity. I'm absolutely certain that he's going to do a fine job and going to enjoy himself and help the council move some really important things forward. So congratulations to you, Anil.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So we'll all be circling in soon, and we'll stay in touch as this comes together. So thank you.
Indeed. Thank you. Take care.
Good night. Okay. Well, that was item 10.1, and we'll now move to item 10.2. And this is our consideration and proposed approval of a resolution approving a one-year agreement for marketing and promotional services agreement in the amount of not to exceed $231,525 between the City of St. Helena and the St. Helena Chamber of Commerce for fiscal year 2022-23. This is prepared by Ms. Nixon, who's going to bring this forward. I just want to make a note that as we discuss this, you know, my interest tonight is advocating beyond the recommendation of the council. We can circle back in on that in a little bit. I want to certainly hear the presentation, but I just want to make that note as we go forward. Ms. Nixon, are you going to lead us into this?
Yes, I believe that Mr. McCann wanted to make some comments in the beginning. Is that correct, Mr. McCann?
Yes, I was trying to get my mute to unmute, and I succeeded. So, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is an item to bring forward a successor agreement with our Chamber of Commerce. We have a good relationship with the chamber. We've asked them over the years to provide certain services to us, really focused on marketing and promotion, as well as some special events. They've done that over the years. Their agreement will expire at the end of this month. We had a presentation a few weeks ago from the executive director of the chamber about the work that they've done under our contract. And this now is an opportunity for us to build on that work, retain the chamber's services around special events and marketing and promotion. I've asked Priya to be our lead on the contract and the contract management in future. So she's been working on this item, and she'll explain our recommendation, and we'd be happy to take your direction on the matter. Priya?
Thank you so much, Mr. McCann, for those comments. And Mayor and City Council, I'd like to echo what Mr. McCann was saying about the excellent work that the Chamber has done. And Amy, it's so great to see you here. So the city has contracted with the Chamber to conduct marketing and promotions and special events in the city of St. Helena and for the St. Helena community since 2015. And the great work by the Chamber has been very well received and is much appreciated by both the city and the community. And Amy, again, thank you for your annual report presentation that you did on May 24th. So last year, the city requested an additional one-time marketing and promotional services to address the economic difficulties brought on by COVID-19 and to support the local businesses. In preparing this report, the City Council has provided direction to staff to move forward prudently and strategically to balance competing budget demands. And we are aware that the Chamber definitely desires to do more with the city. So for this upcoming year, the city desires to continue its collaboration with the St. Helena Chamber of Commerce with the traditional funding for special event productions and marketing and promotional services. And we've proposed a one-year agreement with a 5% increase with the Chamber to continue the very well done work and the much enjoyed events. And we have Amy Caraba, the CEO from the Chamber, who is here as well. And that concludes my brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to see if there's any council input at this point, but I wanted to, if not, I have some points that I wanted to make in terms of advocating. We're looking at the budget of the 220, I'm sorry if I have the number correct, the 231, 525. The additional ask in terms of marketing dollars that we did last year for 100,000, I believe was very, very well spent. And my advocacy tonight is to continue at that level. I think it's, we're still in a recovery phase. I think this is money that we're investing that brings money back in. We've heard from our hotel community that they believe there's a direct result from this type of marketing, bringing in folks that are creating more TOT dollars. Looking at our overall revenues and what looks like a surplus on our reserves. I know we always have to be very concerned with our budget, but I do believe that this is money that can generate more money. The Chamber has proven over the last number of years an absolute dedication to both the business community and the residential community in a really remarkable way. I want to hear from the rest of the council as well. But for me, these dollars, I believe, come back to us, and the continuation of the marketing programs that were put in place, I think there's going to be a sort of a long-term benefit of not slowing down those programs, but adding an additional year. One other aspect I want to bring up is that overall, I would be in favor of a longer 2 or 3 year contract, but I want to recognize that we're bringing in a new city manager who may have an approach that he would want to bring. So I do think the 1 year contract is the right way to go this year. But I do want to advocate for both the 235,000 level, but also that additional 100,000. I think it is money well spent. And those are my thoughts right now. I want to open it to the council and also open it to Amy if she has some input for us. So if I'm seeing not any council hands yet, I will ask Amy if she's got a little input for us here.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that so much. I put together that presentation the last time we were all in a room, and I really hope you had a chance to really look into it and dive into it, because I know first and foremost, we're so grateful to get any amount of funding from the city in partnership to do the destination marketing for the city of St. Helena. It allows us to do so many different things, right? Doing the visitor center and all the events, running all the social media channels, doing some paid media campaigns. You saw all the print placement that we have, all the influencers that we're bringing out. I mean, it's quite a lot of work for a small team of 3 full-time employees, and we're so happy to do it. We're energized about it. We love doing it. The one thing that I want to mention is before the pandemic, we were significantly, in my opinion, underfunded because we're trying to compete. And I know I expressed this at our last meeting with nearby cities with Napa Valley for tourism, for foot traffic, right? For visitors coming here, for people filling in the hotels, spending in the wineries, the restaurants, and the shops. And so when we got this additional $100,000, it was incredible. And when I say that because, you know, we track everything, we've got the metrics, and every single thing that we're tracking is up. I showed it to you in my presentation. I sent it to you in my presentation. We're talking foot traffic numbers on the website jumped from 40,000 to almost 60,000, roughly about 56,000 hits a month. You saw all the bookings in the hotels. That is a direct effect of the paid media campaigns that we're specifically running to boost those overnight stays. I did reach out to hoteliers within the area and have them write letters to you, because when I go to the TID meetings and I ask them, how are things going? They're telling me this is working. This is fantastic. And we know when people are here, they're spending. So there's also a sales tax effect for the city. And so I tried to put that presentation together for you guys at the last meeting to show you that these paid media campaigns are really paying for itself. So look at it as a loan. I know I mentioned that because it is generating more revenue than the amount. Plus, we can't track, obviously, the spending of the sales tax, but you've got to accumulate that as well. So when I tell you that extra 100,000, it's a strategic plan working with a professional PR and marketing firm, and I'm choosing the best, right? We're using one of the best PR marketing firms in California that works with, you know, likewise destinations like Tahoe and Carmel. I've got a really big plan that I would love to move forward with if we get this additional funding. And if we can't do the 100, maybe we can do 50. Is there something that we can do? All I'm trying to say is that extra additional dollars is for paid media campaigns that we were really lacking. And right now, as I mentioned in the last presentation, we are competing with nearby towns. If anything, we're succeeding them. And I'm getting calls from Calistoga. I'm getting calls from other towns. I won't mention names. They're saying, what are you guys doing? And that makes me feel good, because it makes me feel so proud to work and do the destination marketing and lead this for the city of St. Helena. Because as you know, when I started just about 5 years ago, a little less, we were coming in last. And I know I mentioned this to you. We were coming in last place in everything. And to be beating Visit Napa Valley on some of these social platforms, of course, they're our marketing leader, but to be up at that level, it shows you that we're definitely doing something right. And we were able to do this last year because of the additional funding. I don't want you to feel that, I know I mentioned this in my last presentation, I don't want you to feel that I'm being tone deaf. I understand the financial situation, but I truly do feel that these additional dollars are really paying for itself. And our businesses are feeling it. They're feeling the effects of the foot traffic. They're seeing visitors spending. We're seeing the energy here in town. And it's just been so amazing. And what concerns me is that we're going to go back to where we were before the pandemic, and we're just going to have mediocre foot traffic numbers, and hotels will be, you know, the occupancy will be 50%, and that we won't be at that caliber that we're at. And so I do have a concern. This is just my recommendation. Obviously, you hire me to do the destination marketing for you. And so I'm making a recommendation to you, and I respect whatever decision you all decide. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you had a chance to look at that PowerPoint. And I'm happy to, like I said. answer that for you.
Thank you. And I want to look to our council to see if there's any input or comment at this point. I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for that. I also support additional funding. I think it's really important that we keep going on being competitive. We want to make sure that we're filling our main street spaces, and we want good numbers to be attracting businesses here as we continue to work on our economic development. And right now, we don't spend this marketing dollars internally in the city. We look to the chamber for that. And I really was impressed by the numbers and by working with that particular agency that you worked with, Amy. It was really impressive, and I want us to keep going. I think it's very important that we continue to support our business community and make sure that we stay competitive and we fill our hotel rooms and we have people choosing St. Helena to spend money here.
Thank you. And I will look for additional council comment. I'm seeing no council comment at this point. I'll look to our city clerk to see if we have public comment.
We do have public comment. Stephanie, I'm going to allow you to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself and address the council.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Stephanie Yamachi here. I am the Vice President for the St. Helena Chamber. First of all, welcome, Mr. Camello. Congratulations, April and Mandy. Well deserved. I just, I want to reiterate and maybe touch on some things really briefly for you. I worked with the Chamber of Commerce when I was an employee with the city, and I was always amazed at the work that Amy has done. It is truly impressive work, and I don't think she gets enough kudos. I think she takes every dollar and stretches it to the absolute maximum it can go. So I don't think Amy is tone deaf in any regards when it comes to what the dollar means. And I think she has been instrumental in keeping businesses. St. Helena has been lucky during the pandemic that we did not lose very many businesses downtown, unlike some of our neighboring cities. And I was on site the day that Raymond cut the ribbon for their opening road off of Highway 29. And Amy calls me, she was not there. She says, you have to talk to Jean-Charles. I've been asking him why he won't open a business in downtown St. Helena. Please, please, please bug him. And we did, and we pressed, and he's opening a business downtown. So I think that there's many things that people don't see happen behind closed doors that Amy does for this community that is outside of these amazing paid media campaigns. Like she said, we've got a staff of 3.5. 2.5 of us, so 2 full-timers and our part-timer live in St. Helena. I think you guys know, since we're finally maybe putting some more dollars and prioritizing staff, that is so hard. The turnover at the chamber is low. I mean, I recently joined the chamber last year. I mean, she does an incredible job of keeping a local team, and that's important. We've had 14,000 people in our visitor center this year alone, which is that traffic is already up. And I think that the chamber really steps up for the city too in times of need. The chamber sent nearly 200 email campaigns during the pandemic for businesses, a lot of which was helping reiterate city support. What was the city doing? They raised $30,000 in a gift card challenge. This is all in addition to the standard. We do concerts in the park. We do sidewalk sale, which had an increase of 24% foot traffic in downtown St. Helena this year. It's the public art that we're working on that you don't even know about. There's so many other things that the chamber does for that contract of what you're proposing to make $230,000. There's so much that goes into that. So I really want to advocate for the additional funding that goes towards these paid media campaigns. It pays to play. I can't wait for the Vine Trail to be finished and for us to be able to promote that to visitors and locals. So I do hope that the council, advocates for the chamber and for the businesses and allows us to keep highlighting all the great things that is for St. Helena and bring visitors here. Our ADR in St. Helena is up like $190 above Napa. And I don't think that that's by accident. I know it's because these digital ads about hotels, we have 12 to 13,000 people a day seeing these ads. And they're saying, I want to go stay there because that's an awesome place. And that's because of the work that the digital marketing strategy that Amy's put in place. So thank you so much for considering, every dollar is appreciated. And we hope that we can continue with this great momentum.
Thank you. Thank you for the public comment. Is there additional public comment?
There are no additional hands raised.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Are we seeing any comment here from Vice Mayor Dorian, Councilmember Hall or Hardy?
Sorry, let me raise my hand.
Yeah, there we go. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I guess, ask staff briefly, the 5%, how did we settle on that number?
I'm happy to answer that question.
Thank you, Priya.
Mr. McCann, would you like me to answer that?
Yep. Yes, please.
Okay, great. So the previous year agreement that the city had with the chamber, there was also a 5% increase. So we moved forward with a 5% increase for this upcoming year.
Okay, thank you.
And that was done, Eric, just so that you know, because of inflation costs. Mark Presswich put that in place because rents go up, right? We're moving our visitor center just to help with some of those things.
Right. No, I was just thinking the same thing. I thought maybe it was, a COLA increase, basically something similar to that. And obviously today it's a little bit different world. So anyway, I was just thinking through that. I would be comfortable moving this up a little bit more to, I don't know, we're at 235, maybe an even 13% or so gets us to about 250. It's a little something extra. I do think that the traffic across the board in the valley is up. It is everywhere. In fact, nationwide. So long as you can get your materials off of boats and ships and things like this, then things keep moving. But and I know Amy, I'm one of your biggest fans, as you know. I have a background in marketing. I think we've talked briefly about that. I think the task which you've referenced well is we have just last week or the week before a tripling in the estimate of our infrastructure for the first time. I mean, it's actually wonderful to see the extent of the work that we have there. And somehow I think with Mr. Camello joining us, we have to look at going forward here. How do we recover, in which places, and how do we do it best? While we are also trying to, fix our dams, our pumps, our valves, pipes, etc. So I'm not comfortable going more than maybe 250 if the rest of the council is okay with that, or whatever the rest of the council wants to do. But I'm fine sort of scaling back where we were during the midst of COVID. I do think that there's a lot of other marketing happening in the valley. I do think that you've been great at reminding the world that St. Helena is the heart of the valley here. We have got to give people more reason to come here and to generate dollars that we need for our infrastructure. And so I don't know what that looks like today, but I know there's a lot of thinking going into it right now, and whether it's through shared services, whether it's through being smarter with certain developments going forward, that we look at ways of really trying to ramp up our revenue to help cover costs. So I think there's always the potential to increase dollars in the future, and I think for me that's kind of where I'm at. I like the work you do. I think I'm not comfortable with where we were in COVID with the funding or the necessity to continue that today. So that's just kind of my take on it. I figured maybe the 5% was a look back at the past, and our inflation today, certainly the numbers are somewhere between, depending on which indicator you look at, 9 to 11%, and no sign of slowing. So I do want to be sensitive to that. 250 puts it about a 13% bump over where it was, and maybe that's a good place to at least start. And I think with COVID, I think you actually came back at one point and suggested the extra 100, which I think was good, and you framed it as putting it in sort of two parts, right? A 50 and a 50, which I also appreciated. So I think there's always room to do things like that in the future. I think we are in a transition one way or another here, and we have a lot of work ahead of us as a city, including new staff positions and new people joining us. So I'd like to run on that for a ways yet and see what the world looks like down the road here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking to Councilmember Hardy and Vice Mayor Doring. Any input here? Councilmember Hardy, I'm seeing your hand.
Thank you. Well, I always like to start by putting things in a larger context, and I know Councilmember Hall's already done some of that for us. With respect to our current financial state, we have a significant percentage of our budget in unallocated funds. I don't know currently what that number looks like. It seems to me in our last budget related meeting that was something over 60%. But that to me does not look like a large amount when I think about what has happened to the city financially in each of the last economic downturns. If I were to pick a target for a city reserve that looked large enough to actually sustain us through the next downturn, I'd probably be aiming for something more like 100%. I don't know that we could get there, but that would be, I think, a meaningful goal. In the near term, I think some additional spending is appropriate, but I think the 30% reserve is far too low, and I could not support anything less than 50 at this point. But just to bracket my thinking about the bigger picture, I am particularly concerned about inflation, and there are troubling indicators out there. I had a conversation today with a client who was pricing fire protection system, basically, a very large scale sprinkler system that can operate on an automated basis in the event of fire. And the cost of some of the parts for that system has increased 6-fold in 9 months. Some of the things that are manufactured abroad are harder and harder to get. There are a lot of factors at work in certain sectors of material supply where the numbers are just crazy. Supply chain issues continue. The challenges are literally international right now in a whole lot of areas. So I I'm no economist, and I don't have any crystal ball, but it does seem to me the prudent thing is to conclude that there's a lot of uncertainty or risk of adverse conditions in the macro economy moving forward in the near term. Things do not look particularly rosy to me right now. So again, that's just more context. With respect to contributing additional money to the chamber, I don't have any fundamental reservation about that. I think we need to be thoughtful about how much we add. But I have to be candid, I do get uneasy when correlations are made that we can't verify. And so I have no doubt that the marketing program is bringing additional traffic, but I literally have no way to confirm what that means economically, either to the businesses or to the city's revenues. And so when I think about, the wonderful work that the chamber is doing and that we're talking about funding, I think it's also helpful to be clear in our discussion and our thoughts as to what the goals and purpose for the city are of making that investment. And it seems to me that it's really threefold. One, there's large community interest in seeing a thriving downtown, just separate and apart from everything else. We know that's something that our constituents value and want. And there is clearly a benefit to the businesses, and I think it makes sense again from a community perspective for the council to support local business independent of what that means in terms of sales tax revenues or TOT revenues or anything else. But the potential for strengthening the city's municipal revenue base is also a consideration. I don't think it necessarily trumps the others. I'm not even sure it's necessarily the most important one, but I think when we're talking, whether we're talking about benefits for businesses, but especially when we're talking about a return on the city's investment in terms of municipal revenues, tax revenues, we're talking about something that becomes measurable in the sense that we know how much revenue we bring in. We can compare one year with another year. We can look at the rate of increase in the city of St. Helena with respect to TOT or sales tax and compare that with increases in revenue in other communities. And I think some of that kind of analysis is really important if we're going to look at the money that we pay to the chamber as a kind of investment with a return. And maybe it's better not to think of it that way. But if I'm prompted to think of it that way, then I want more information. I just, that's how my brain works. If there is something that, a question that can be answered or a correlation that can be examined through some real quantitative analysis, then that's what I want to do. So I'm inclined to support Councilmember Hall's proposal for tonight's action and to if other council members are interested, to direct staff to bring us back some more information about, how sales tax and TOT have changed over the last 5 years, and a comparison to, what that graph looks like in other communities, because that's a way for us to get some sense of what the differences really are in terms of revenues. And maybe some way to separate the benefits we're getting simply from the uptick in the macroeconomy, the return of visitors to the valley generally, versus the benefits that we get directly from the Chamber's advertising. And again, I really want to emphasize, I don't think looking at this contract as something we do as an investment in municipal revenue exclusively makes any sense at all. I think there are other equally important, perhaps more important reasons for doing it. But if I had more confidence that adding $100,000 would generate increased sales tax in excess of that, then it would change the whole way I think about how far we should go. And I just don't have the information to make a commitment on that basis. So those are my thoughts for the moment.
Thank you. And I'll look now and see if Vice Mayor Doring has any thoughts here.
All good comments. Thank you, council members. Good discussion. Thank you, Amy, for being here and fighting for your chamber members, which I totally respect. You're almost having your lawyer hat on tonight. It's very difficult when we have statistics and trying to show causation. I am troubled by this all day long, every day in my practice. I'm generally supportive of the idea that the chamber has worked really hard with a really small staff. I have a couple thoughts, somewhat off topic, but somewhat related. I'd like to have some discussions over the next year about sort of revamping the model of what a chamber does and what it looks like and how it benefits the city. My biggest concern is economic development. So just practically speaking, if all the stores are empty, all the foot traffic is not going to help us. That's a very simplistic statement, I know, but that's sort of where I'm going. I know it's sort of outside of the marketing, the destination marketing. And I know based on many conversations with you that you do a lot of trying to bring in new businesses. My fundamental premise here is that new businesses help your current businesses because it's just more shops, more interest, more money because everybody shares in a bigger pie. That's sort of my fundamental way of looking at it. I know other council members have more expertise in that, but that's my sense of it. And so I would like to have, with Mr. Comelo and you and others, as we go forward, sort of look at another aspect of chamber work as maybe targeting a few properties, maybe 3 or 4 over the next year and saying we need to focus on these and get tenants into these places. And the city has to put up its part too. And that may require some dollars. I've been talking about this for a long time, so I'm glad Mr. Hardy brought it up. The notion of this 30% reserve being anywhere close to being adequate under the current threat we have is just really not a good way of looking at the world. I don't know about 100%, that'd be great, but I think we have a habit of starting to chip away at that reserve, that surplus, whatever you want to call it. One of the things, there is a benefit to a reserve right now. When we go out to issue bonds, we're going to be looked at a little we'll be in better shape because folks are going to look at our reserves. The rating agencies are going to look at that. It affects interest rates. So there is a long-term benefit to having high reserves right now. just to finish my thoughts, so the reserves are important. We have to be very aware of the risks that we're facing. I don't know. I'm kind of, in between Councilmember Hardy's proposal and Mayor Ellsworth's proposal. But I think out of caution, I would probably lean towards Councilmember Hall's proposal right now and then revisit it in 3, 4, or 5 months. I know that's not the language you want to hear from me, because you have to make commitments now with your vendors, and it's kind of like iffy, but that's kind of where I am, in the 250 to 260 range, and maybe relooking at it again. But I wanted to get have an opportunity for you to have your thoughts on this notion of bringing in the businesses to support other businesses and having the chamber partner with the city on that. And maybe that will become a portfolio for Dr. Mitz. So we'll see where that goes.
Well, just to answer you, thank you so much, Paul and Lester, for your thoughts. Just to answer you, I'm moving a welcome center and I still have 4.5 years on a lease. So think about that as think of that as a nice notion of, I'm leaving my lease, my baby, my brand new welcome center. I'm moving it to a new vacant spot so that a developer can come in and do something incredible for downtown. Do you know how much work a move is? It's incredible work. And what people don't realize also, when you move locations, you actually will see a decline in revenue. That's exactly what happened when we moved this first time. And I won't get into the details of why, but I'm just explaining there's so many things that happen when a business moves. And the thing is we've done it, so we're going to do it again. And we know how to fight those negative things. So we're going to be fine. I have no concerns about the move. But I'm bringing that up to you, Paul, so that you realize the dedication that we have towards economic development and the economic sustainability of downtown. When I started, we had over 12 vacancies on Main Street. I mean, this is a little over 4.5 years ago. And now when I call, the other CEOs in other towns, it is amazing. I mean, it's not an amazing feeling. We don't want vacancies anywhere in Napa Valley, right? But it does make me feel good that other towns are saying, oh, wow, well, we had this and this and this after the pandemic, right? Or during the pandemic, I should say, because we're still in it. But, and St. Helena has really, I think, held its own. But yes, we do have these specific spots on Main Street where the chamber can help facilitate. I'm very, I talk with the building owners. I know that you have as well. We need a little pressure put on those building owners to do something. I've tried to even rent some of those spaces to put the welcome center in some of those other vacant spots. And we know the challenges that we have. But of course, the chamber would prioritize that because we want our downtown to basically be even more enhanced. That's a huge goal. The other note that I just want to touch on, Lester, to answer some of your points, if you really dive into my PowerPoint, and April and Eric, you guys are there for those TID meetings. You know the numbers that are being reported from the city in terms of the TOT. So they're there. The metrics are there. All I'm putting together to you is direct information from our PR firm, from the campaigns for those hotel campaigns that are running, and direct bookings that we are able to track. And so when I tell you in this report, right, as of, I forget the date, I'm going to have one more reporting final metric because these campaigns are ending at the end of the month. So everything that we are running, the fiscal year ends, everything is stopping. And so that's why I've had a little bit of this concern of this momentum that we've built, and we are now going to stop. So all the ads on Pinterest, Google, Instagram, I've got ads running in the airport. I told you that QR code had been scanned more than 20,000 times. Those are stopping. And we're going to build our new strategic plan. And I'm delayed because I don't know where we are, right? And so I'm bringing this up to you because I really tried to put together something to show you the metrics. I installed a camera downtown to show you foot traffic improvements, right? Because I would hear, and I'll use the holidays for an example, I would hear, oh, we do all this stuff for the holidays, right? The roller rink, all these different things. We did the wine barrel tree, and people would say, well, we don't know if foot traffic's up. Well, we're tracking it. I can tell you if it is. I can tell you what it was last year, and I can tell you what it is this year. I can tell you the busiest day happened when we ran a specific targeted ad to promote something at the Wine Barrel Tree. It was the busiest day of the year. I can tell you that. It's tracked. Our website traffic is tracked. Our social media impressions, everything is tracked. And I know Paul's going to say I'm a good lawyer here, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm just trying to explain to you what I'm doing. And I track everything because every year I come here and every year I have to explain the marketing analytics and this and that. And I want to be able to give you metrics. I want to be able to give you something that you can look at and say, okay, I'm not just, selling you something. I'm really trying to explain to you that we're tracking this, so I know when a campaign isn't working and we change it immediately. And so I'm just saying that to you because Lester, you bring up a great point. And, Eric, I don't know if you have any comments, or April, but we go to those TID meetings and everybody in those TID meetings say everything is fantastic. That's not just because people are traveling because they're sick of being at home. It's because they're being targeted. And yes, a portion of it is that people are sick of being at home and they're traveling, but they're deciding where to go, and they're specifically deciding where to go because they're being targeted. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. My
Thank you,
concern
by the
is,
way.
yeah, my concern is that if we were to increase to 250, that's only $19,000 more. So that's not enough to do anything with this campaign that's been happening. I would love for Amy, for you to comment on that. If we were to increase to $50,000 more, what could you do? I know before with 100,000, that was, we were lucky to get the contract that we did and the work that we did. So could you speak a bit to what would happen if we gave, right now what's on the table is another 19,000, or, what I would like to see, what about 50,000? What could you do with that?
Sure. If we did 50,000, and I'm just talking off the top of my head, I reached out to 3 different firms. I got 3 different strategic plans because I wanted to see if I had this, what could we do? I would probably, just after looking at everything, and I know the firm that I want to work with, I would probably put it towards paid media specifically. And it would be about $50,000. It would still be targeted campaigns so that I could give you metrics. The things that we're not going to have are some of the bells and the whistles, right? The paid media placements in, like, let's say travel and leisure, so things like that. We won't be in the Santa Rosa airport. I would really spend it on the ads that we know are working and what we believe is generating revenue. So that's where I would put those dollars, because that's my biggest factor, right? I'm trying to get people here to stay longer, and then I'm trying to get them here to spend. That's the number one goal. So obviously if we had 100, the dollars go farther. And obviously if we did a longer contract, the dollars go even farther, because the paid media spend is actually cheaper. So it's very complicated, but when you're buying the paid media ad spend, if you have a longer contract, they give it to you cheaper, the ads run longer, and your dollars go farther. And so that's why I was really pushing for a longer contract. However, I respectfully understand we've got a new city manager, so we need to let him come in and decide what, with council, the direction you want to go. So a 1-year contract is fine. But that was my plan behind a 3-year, so that I could work with a firm on a very strong 3-year strategic plan and build it out. Because that's what most cities do. Respectfully speaking, Yountville's not on a 1-year plan. They're on a 3-year, and they're in the middle of it, right? Same with Calistoga. Well, Calistoga has an interesting way of doing it, but it's somewhat similar to Yountville. We've been doing this 1 year, and I wanted to stretch it a little more.
One of the concerns I have in terms of timing is that if we wait, we have a summer season coming up. We have the harvest season. We're in stride with a marketing and promotion program that the chambers put in place and worked very hard to get up and running. And for it to go dark right before really important season is very concerning. Looking at our revenue is higher than Calistoga. It's higher than Yountville. Everybody's got infrastructure issues. Every city in the country has infrastructure issues. We've got ours. I believe there's a value in investing in infrastructure, just like in a home. You can have $1 million in the bank, and if you're not investing in your home, in your kitchen, or you're redoing what you're doing, you're not really necessarily helping the value stay where it needs to be. So there's a balance. A healthy reserve is nice, but also if you're stockpiling funds and not reinvesting them, not putting them into paving or infrastructure or promotion, then the money's sitting there, the equity is sitting there, but not necessarily working for you. This, to me, is an opportunity for our dollars to work for us in a way that I believe Amy's and the chamber have really proven works. And if folks aren't comfortable with the full 100,000, I do think looking at a $50,000 level, something that they can really work with to follow up what they've done in the last few years and really shown us that the commitment both to the residential community, also to the business community, this balance is working. And so the continuity of what they put together, if we're not comfortable fully funding 100,000, at least I think a $50,000 level to make sure that they can keep these programs moving, because they, as Amy's saying, it does translate to dollars. The hotel folks here have let us know that they can see a direct correlation. I recognize Councilmember Hardy's point, or perhaps it was Councilmember Hall's point about a macro economy growing, but what we've done in St. Helena is remarkable. And there's always risk. There's a comet could hit, Earth tomorrow. So there's always risk. But if you look at investing in a fairly secure way, the chamber has shown that the dollars coming back are in this range. And then if you look at sales tax, people dining in our restaurants, spending money in our community, I think there's a real value. So holding the dollars when there's a timing thing here. There's an opportunity that if we miss it and go dark, maybe the numbers diminish. And I just think that would be it'd be very disappointing. So that's where I'm at, is that this is something I really believe in. I would like to fund the full 100,000, but I can look at that idea of getting to 50,000. I don't think that just moving it up 19,000 gives the chamber the tools they need. And I think that Amy's gotten the respect of everybody in Napa County and all the chambers, and Visit Napa Valley and really see the value of her work. And I think this is a way to show her that we believe in her, and that it's not just us believing in her. She's shown us that it works. So that's where I am. And if we look at, what does that look like for the rest of the council? And if we want to talk about reserves, yes, it'd be nice to have 200% reserve. But if you have a huge reserve and you're not reinvesting, is that consistent with good municipal management? And so how we look at those balances, and how do we keep that in context with where other cities are in their reserves? And certainly Calistoga and Yountville at a certain circumstance, but other cities like Healdsburg or Carmel or other cities in certain circumstances have different levels of reserves that we can look at for context to make sure that we're not out of line. So with that, if there's any additional comment, or is there interest in additional funding at the 50,000 or the $100,000 level? My concern is timing. If we don't put the support in now, we get a drop off in our promotion right when it should be at least staying stable. So if there's support from Councilmember Chateau in that $50,000 range, is there support from another council member in that range? Any suggestions for moving forward here from anybody? I'm seeing Councilmember Hall.
Well, I'll make a motion to do a 1-year agreement at 250. Like I said earlier, I'm not at all comfortable going beyond that. In fact, when I arrived here today, I wasn't even planning to go up to 250. So for me, that's the extent of my level of comfort for all of the reasons given earlier. I do think, to Vice Mayor Doring's earlier comments, there are other issues pertaining to vacancies downtown. And that's not a mass marketing issue particularly. That's a hand-to-hand combat issue. The city is not in the business of leasing, of course, but we need to figure out as a city, to the Vice Mayor's points, how are we going to get serious about economic development? Clearly, the chamber is part of it, but it's not the whole nut, and we have a lot of work to do there. So I'm comfortable making a motion to 250 or leaving the staff recommendation as is.
I think it's also important to note in terms of economic development, if you don't have marketing, because it actually is correlated to destination marketing. If you don't have good foot traffic and you don't have a bustling downtown, nobody's going to want to put a business there. And so they are correlated. So I just want to bring that up because it's actually very important.
Thank you. I concur. Amy, Ms. Carrabba. I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. Just wanted to start by responding to Councilmember Hall's comment about the importance of addressing in concrete, action-related manner the need for business development, economic development, and I know there has been from time to time some discussion of having a position on city staff where someone has responsibility for that. I'm not sure in a town our size that would be a full-time job, although I have no doubt that at least for some period of time it could be. So, there are more things for us to consider in terms of having a vibrant downtown, more funding to think about than simply funding the marketing efforts of the chamber as successful as they've been. So with that said, and then one other comment, I really do think that when we're thinking about reserves, we have to think about what happens when our revenues drop in an economic downturn. Because with the kind of reserves that we have maintained historically, what happens is we freeze compensation for employees or reduce it. We take concessions from our employees. We reduce staff through attrition as quickly as we can. And historically, it has taken us years, literally, to rebuild our administrative infrastructure after each downturn. So I think this is just the reality of what is required for far-sighted management of the public fisc here. We have some real direct experience with what these downturns look like and what they do to municipal revenues and what the consequences are for our administrative infrastructure. And when we lose that administrative infrastructure, we lose the ability to do projects. We lose the ability to manage projects that we might otherwise undertake. So it may look in one light, foolish to have a lot of money in a savings account when we could be investing it, but the kinds of investments that we would be making are not the kind that generate revenue while preserving the principal. It's a whole different kind of investment, and if it depletes our cash reserves, we're setting ourselves up for another problematic cycle down the road. So I'll second Councilmember Hall's motion. I'm happy to come back to this subject. I'm happy to look at a significant increase in chamber funding, but I need our staff, not you, Amy, but our staff to help me see what all of these things mean in terms of sales tax and TOT, and I need to see it over time, and I need to see it with some context in terms of other local municipalities. So I think that's doable. I think that will add some insight that is going to be very helpful in making these decisions moving forward. And that's where I am. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look to Vice Mayor Doring to see if he has any interest in offering a substitute motion that would be for the $50,000.
Before that, can I just keep track here? I don't think that Mr. Hall made a motion. I think Mr. Hall indicated that he was willing to make a motion, but I actually don't think we have a motion or a second on the table at this point, just to keep things honest.
I will.
I'm sorry, we have discussion at this point, and there could be a motion, but I don't believe there is one yet.
Okay, I'm happy to make one now, which is I'll move to re-up the chamber's contract for 1 year at $250,000.
Second.
So to add a little more discussion, if I may, to see if there's an opportunity for a substitute motion for a $50,000 increase on that. We have right now a surplus over our 30% revenue of additional 30%, $5 million. This to me is a revenue building opportunity at a prime time to make that investment. And I believe very disappointing to if we don't see the opportunity and the work that was built to give us this opportunity at a very reasonable, modest investment to support the businesses that do bring revenue to the city. There certainly could be, as I said, a downturn, but right now there's not. And this is, to me, the time to put good money on top of good money. We just got out of a pandemic. We're still in recovery. This, to me, would still be part of a recovery process that we've seen work. So disappointing to me to not see others see that value. So I'd like to see a substitute motion. If not, I'll certainly support the motion because I want to make sure that the chamber gets at least the basics. But I'll continue advocating over the coming weeks if we don't get there tonight, that this is an opportunity that this council, I believe, should recognize. So that's where I'll leave it. I'll look to see if there's a substitute motion. So not seeing it. So then we'll call and look to Cami in terms of a roll call.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Councilmember Chateau,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
and Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. Thank you. And so that is the end of our agenda. And so unless there's additional input from the council, three little points here. First, I want to welcome Mr. Camello and looking forward to working with you. Want to thank Mr. McCann again for all the incredible work. Want to keep reminding folks, water conservation, fire safety preparedness. It's going to be a broken record, but we have to stay focused on those things. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Good night, all.